The morning sun filtered through the crystalline walls of the Galactic Concordat Military Academy as Ambassador Velkoth walked through the corridor with heavy steps. His 4 arms carried data tablets filled with examination protocols that had remained unchanged for 200 years. Today marked the beginning of another crucible season, and he felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The Academy floated in orbit above the capital world, a massive structure where the best and brightest from across the galaxy came to prove themselves worthy of military service. Young cadets from hundreds of different species trained together, learning tactics, strategy, and survival. But all of that training led to one final test that separated the capable from the broken. They called it the Crucible. Velkoth entered the observation deck where his staff had already gathered. Screens displayed data from previous examinations, showing success rates and casualty reports. The numbers never lied. 40% of cadets passed. 5% died. The rest activated their emergency distress beacons and returned home in shame, their dreams of military service shattered. It was brutal. It was necessary. Or so Velkoth had always believed. The cadets are assembling in the main hall, his assistant informed him. All 50 have arrived. 50, Velkoth repeated. Including the humans? Yes, Ambassador. 4 of them. Velkoth felt his stomach twist slightly. Humans. The Concordat had debated their admission for months. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, a rating that indicated extreme environmental hostility. But the humans themselves seemed so unremarkable. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest. Their technology was adequate but not exceptional. Their diplomatic representatives smiled too much and made strange jokes that translation matrices struggled to interpret. Still, the council had voted to admit them. 4 humans would participate in this year's crucible. Velkoth made his way to the briefing hall. The massive chamber was already filled with cadets standing in organized rows. He recognized many species. There stood Krethker, a Valerian warrior whose people were renowned for their combat prowess. The twin Cynthians, Quarix and Qualin, whose logical minds could calculate probability faster than most computers. Several Draxian explorers with their multiple sensory tentacles. A handful of others from worlds that produced natural survivors. And then he saw them. The humans. They stood together near the back, looking impossibly small compared to most other cadets. James Cooper had broad shoulders and an easy smile that seemed out of place in a military setting. Emma Wright was lean with sharp eyes that constantly scanned her surroundings. Thomas Hunt was built solidly like someone accustomed to heavy labor. Kate Miller was compact and still, but Velkoth noticed how she watched everything with quiet intensity. They looked fragile. Breakable. Velkoth activated the central hologram and began his standard briefing speech. He had given this same speech for 15 years, and the words came automatically. Cadets, in 6 hours you will be transported to Theta 9. This world has been designated as your examination environment. You will remain there for 30 standard days. Your objective is simple. Survive. Reach the extraction point at the designated time. Those who complete this task will graduate with full honors. He paused, letting the weight settle on them. Each of you will be equipped with basic survival supplies. 1 shelter unit. 3 days of rations. A water purification device. And 1 distress beacon. If you activate that beacon, a shuttle will retrieve you within hours. You will also be immediately expelled from the academy. There is no second chance. There is no partial credit for effort. The hologram shifted, displaying Theta 9 in rotating detail. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even cadets who had prepared mentally for hardship felt their confidence waver at the sight. The planet's surface showed razor-sharp mountain ranges, dense forests with vegetation that moved unnaturally, and vast plains where nothing grew. Data scrolled beside the image. Temperature fluctuations between -40 and +60 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric composition that was breathable but barely. Acidic rainfall that occurred without warning. Native predators that had been genetically enhanced for the examination. Combat drones programmed to hunt. This is Theta 9, Velkoth continued. It has been carefully designed to test every aspect of your training. Physical endurance. Mental resilience. Tactical thinking. Resource management. You will face hunger, injury, environmental hazards, and hostile creatures. Statistically, 5% of you will die. Approximately half will activate distress beacons. The rest will pass or fail based on your ability to endure. The hall was silent except for the nervous breathing of 50 cadets contemplating their mortality. Velkoth heard a sound from the human section. A quiet laugh quickly suppressed. He turned his attention toward them. James was whispering something to Emma, who was trying not to smile. Thomas nodded at whatever was said. Kate remained still, but Velkoff thought he detected amusement in her expression. They were laughing. Hours before being dropped onto a world designed to kill them, they were laughing. Velkoff dismissed it as nerves or perhaps a cultural coping mechanism. Every species dealt with fear differently. You have 6 hours to prepare, he concluded. Spend them wisely. Dismissed. The cadets filed out in silent groups, most already pale with anticipation. Krethker walked with rigid military bearing, his warrior pride evident in every step. The Cynthian twins moved together, no doubt already calculating survival probabilities. The others dispersed to check equipment, review survival data, or meditate according to their various traditions. The humans walked out together, still talking quietly among themselves. Velkoff watched them go and felt an unfamiliar sensation. Doubt. Either these humans were far more capable than they appeared, or they genuinely did not understand the danger they faced. In 6 hours he would discover which. 3 days had passed since the cadets dropped onto Theta 9, and Velkoff had not slept properly for any of them. He stood in the monitoring station surrounded by screens showing feeds from across the planet. Each cadet wore a biosensor that tracked vital signs, and each sector had surveillance cameras hidden in the environment. So far, everything was proceeding normally. Which is to say, it was proceeding terribly for most cadets. Cadet Prethanael has activated his beacon, a technician announced from her station. Medical emergency. Toxin exposure from plant contact. Velkoff checked the feed. The cadet was clutching his arm where purple welts had spread across the skin. Standard reaction to the thorn vines that grew throughout Sector 4. Painful but not fatal if treated quickly. Mark him as failed. Send retrieval shuttle, Velkoff ordered. That made 11 failures already. Within the expected range, though on the higher side. Ambassador, you should see feed 7. Velkoff pulled up the display and felt confusion wash over him. Feed 7 showed the human sector. All 4 humans had somehow found each other, which was unusual but not prohibited. The rules allowed cadets to work together if they could manage it, though most species were too proud or paranoid to trust others. But what they had built made no sense. A proper camp stood where desperate shelters should have been. Not just one shared structure but multiple buildings. A fire pit with organized cooking areas. Drying racks with strips of meat hanging from them. What appeared to be a water collection system using woven baskets. And strangest of all, decorative carvings on wooden posts planted around the perimeter. They made art. Velkoff said aloud. On day 3 of a survival examination, they made decorative art? Yes, Ambassador. Cadet Miller spent approximately 2 hours yesterday carving patterns into wood. Velkoff zoomed in on another feed. Thomas was running in circles around the camp. Not fleeing from danger. Not rushing to complete a task. Just running, his breath steady, his pace consistent. What is he doing? Velkoff demanded. The technician checked her notes. According to audio surveillance, he told the others he needed to maintain his cardiovascular conditioning. He runs for 30 minutes each morning. He is voluntarily exhausting himself. For no survival purpose. Yes, Ambassador. Another screen showed Kate crouched in tall grass with a handmade spear. A predator drone moved through the area, its sensors scanning for targets. Kate waited until it passed close, then exploded from hiding and drove the spear into its sensor cluster. The drone sparked and crashed. Kate retrieved her spear, dragged the disabled drone back toward camp, and Velkoff heard her voice through the audio feed. Got another one. Thomas, can you pull the power cells before dinner? Sure thing. Thomas called back, still running his circles. Velkoff switched to feed 12. James and Emma were working together on some kind of smoking rack, singing as they tied vines together. Actually singing. The translation matrix identified it as something called Old Folk Songs from Earth. Their biosigns, what do they show? Velkoff asked. The technician brought up the data. Heart rates are calm. Stress hormones are present but well below dangerous levels. Cortisol readings are actually lower than they were during the pre-mission briefing on the shuttle. That is impossible. They are on a death world. They should be terrified. The equipment is functioning correctly, Ambassador. I have run 3 separate diagnostic checks. Velkoff sat heavily in his chair. The humans were less stressed on Theta 9 than they had been meeting new aliens in a classroom. Day 5 brought the first major environmental hazard. The acid rain warning systems activated across all sectors. Cadets received automated alerts through their biosensors and had approximately 10 minutes to seal themselves inside protective shelters. Velkoth watched 30 different screens as cadets scrambled into emergency protocols. Some had prepared well and secured their shelters in time. Others struggled with equipment, and Velkoth noted several who would likely suffer minor burns. 2 cadets in Sector 9 had not built adequate shelter at all and were huddled under inadequate coverings, praying the acid concentration would be weak. Then he checked the human feed and nearly fell from his chair. The humans had removed most of their clothing and were running out into the rain. Actually running toward it. Emma had her arms spread wide, face turned upward. James was shouting something that the audio feed captured clearly. "This is perfect. Kate, get the collection barrels." Kate was already rolling large woven containers into position under makeshift funnels that directed the rainfall into concentrated streams. Thomas was using a stick to draw channels in the dirt, creating a drainage system that fed into the containers. "What are they doing?" Velkoth asked, though no one could answer. "The rain is acidic. It will burn them." "Sir, their skin appears resistant," the technician reported. "Minor reddening but no serious burns. They seem to be tolerating exposure that would hospitalize most species." Emma's voice came through clearly. "This is brilliant. Free hydrochloric acid. We can use this to process those tough root vegetables we found. And break down the Predator drone casings for salvage." "She is treating an environmental hazard as a resource opportunity," Dr. Thesick said from behind Velkoth. The xenopsychologist had been observing quietly. "Ambassador, I need to review all human feeds from the beginning." "Why?" "Because we have fundamentally misunderstood something about this species." The acid rain continued for 2 hours. When it finally stopped, Velkoth checked on other cadets. 3 had suffered serious burns. 1 had activated his distress beacon. Most were traumatized and shaken, huddled in their shelters recovering from the terror. The humans had collected 47 containers of acid rain and were discussing which projects to use it for first. By day 7, the pattern was undeniable. Every challenge Theta 9 presented, the humans treated as either entertainment or opportunity. Temperature swings? They built better insulation and seemed comfortable in ranges that left other species suffering. Dangerous wildlife? They hunted it. Toxic plants? They tested them systematically to find which were edible. Krethker, the proud Valerian warrior, watched from his shelter as James jogged past carrying a heavy log on his shoulders. The human was humming a tune. Krethker looked down at his own infected leg wound, then back at the human who was exercising while injured enemies lurked in every shadow. He activated his communicator with shaking hands. "Human, are you injured?" James stopped, turning toward Krethker's shelter with a friendly wave. "Me? Nah, I'm good. Just getting some exercise in. Can't let a month off ruin my training schedule." "You choose to exert yourself beyond necessity? For recreation?" "Well, yeah, I gotta keep the strength up. You never know when you'll need it." Krethker watched the human disappear into the forest, still humming, still carrying the log for no reason except personal satisfaction. The Valerian warrior, trained from birth for combat, recognized something in that moment. These humans were not surviving Theta 9. They were enjoying it. Day 14 arrived with alarm bells ringing throughout the monitoring station. Velkoth rushed between screens as reports flooded in from every sector of Theta 9. The situation was deteriorating faster than any previous examination in Academy history. Cadet Velnoth is critical. Severe dehydration and heat exhaustion, a technician called out. Cadet PRYX has multiple predator wounds. Requesting immediate extraction, another voice added. Beacon activation in Sector 12. That makes 17 total failures, sir. Velkoth felt his heart's racing. 17 cadets had already failed with 16 days remaining. The numbers were far beyond normal parameters. At this rate, the pass rate would drop below 20%. Questions would be asked. Reviews would be demanded. He pulled up the main display showing the human sector and felt his confusion deepen into something close to disbelief. The human camp had grown. It now featured multiple structures including what appeared to be a communal gathering area with wooden benches arranged in a circle. Smoke rose from a new construction that the surveillance identified as a pottery kiln. An actual kiln. For making clay containers. "They are making pottery," Velkoth said flatly. "In the middle of a survival examination, they are creating artisan crafts." Dr. Thesick stood beside him, taking notes furiously. The xenopsychologist had barely left the monitoring station for 3 days. "Ambassador, I have completed my preliminary analysis of human behavior patterns. Please explain to me why they are treating certain death as a recreational holiday. That is exactly the point, sir. For them, this is a holiday. Thesic pulled up comparative data on a side screen. Humans engage in voluntary activities called camping, where they deliberately place themselves in wilderness environments with minimal supplies. They pay currency to do this. They consider it entertainment. That makes no sense. Why would any species voluntarily endure hardship? Because their baseline for hardship is radically different from ours. Thesic expanded the Earth environmental data. Consider their evolution. Humans developed on a world where the atmosphere was initially toxic to most current life forms. Where apex predators hunted in coordinated packs. Where weather systems could kill in minutes. Where microscopic organisms caused mass death events that shaped their entire history. Velkoth stared at the data. He had read these reports before but had dismissed them as exaggeration. Now he wondered if they had actually understated Earth's hostility. Theta 9 is challenging by galactic standards, Thesic continued. But by Deathworld standards, it represents moderate difficulty. Look at their stress hormones. She pulled up the biosensor data. Elevated compared to their baseline rest state, yes. But still below what they registered during Academy orientation when they first met alien species. They found meeting us more stressful than surviving on Theta 9? Social anxiety versus physical danger, Ambassador. For humans, physical danger is evolutionarily familiar. It is their comfort zone. On the main screen, Emma was teaching Quarix how to start a fire using friction and dry grass. The logical Cynthian kept failing, his precise mathematical mind struggling with the variables of pressure, speed, and material selection. Emma demonstrated again patiently, her hands moving in practiced motions. For human children, this is considered essential education, Thesic noted. They learn fire starting, shelter construction, water purification, and basic first aid before reaching adolescence. What we consider advanced survival skills, they consider basic childhood knowledge. Velkoth watched several more feeds in silence. Kate was swimming in the acidic lake wearing some kind of protective covering she had fashioned from plant materials and predator hide. Thomas was climbing one of the electromagnetic storm pillars despite the obvious danger, apparently testing how high he could get before the energy discharge became too intense. James was teaching a group of... Wait. Velkoth zoomed in. James was not alone. 3 other cadets sat around him, listening intently as he explained something about water sources. When did other cadets join them? Beginning on day 10, sir. It started with Cadet Krethker. His leg infection was becoming life-threatening. He approached the humans for assistance. The feed showed Krethker sitting by the fire, his leg freshly bandaged with woven plant fiber. Emma was explaining something to him while applying a paste made from local vegetation to his wound. They are helping the competition? Velkoth asked. The humans do not appear to view this as competition, sir. They view it as a community survival scenario. By day 16, the trickle of cadets seeking human assistance had become a steady flow. Quarix and Qualin arrived together on day 15 after calculating their independent survival probability had dropped below 23%. A Draxian cadet came on day 16, suffering from malnutrition. 2 more followed by day 17. The human camp now housed 12 cadets from 6 different species. Krethker sat with Thomas, learning to weave rope from plant fibers. His warrior pride had initially made him resist accepting help, but near-death had a way of adjusting perspectives. Now he listened carefully as Thomas explained techniques that human children learned at summer camps. You must understand, Krethker said, his voice still rough with shame, my people train for combat from age 5. I have studied warfare tactics, weapons mastery, survival protocols. Yet in 16 days on this world I nearly died. You humans treat it as entertainment. Thomas shrugged while his hands continued the steady weaving motion. Different baseline, mate. Where I grew up in Australia we had spiders whose bite could kill you in minutes, snakes hiding everywhere, jellyfish in the water that stopped your heart, crocodiles that could grab you from the riverbank, and heat that regularly hit 50 degrees. You learned to deal with it or you didn't survive childhood. Your children face death regularly? Not regularly, but yeah, it happens. That's why we teach survival skills young. Can't protect kids from everything, so you teach them to protect themselves. Krethker looked at the human with new understanding. These were not warriors in the traditional sense. They were something more fundamental. Survivors who had evolved on a world that refused to let weakness exist. On day 18, Velkoth called an emergency meeting with the Academy board. 29 cadets had now activated distress beacons. Only 21 remained on Theta 9, and 16 of those were clustered around the human camp. "We must consider suspending the examination," one board member suggested. "The failure rate is unprecedented." "The humans are not failing," another pointed out. "They are thriving. As are the cadets who sought their assistance." "That proves my point. The examination is no longer testing individual capability. It has become a group survival scenario centered on one species." Velkoth listened to the debate but had already made his decision. "The rules state cadets may cooperate if they choose. The humans have broken no protocols. We will let the examination continue to its conclusion." "And the final test?" "The Predator assault." Velkoth looked at the screen showing humans teaching aliens how to survive through joy rather than fear. "We proceed as planned. I want to see what Deathworlders can truly do when pushed." Day 22 brought an unusual sight to Theta 9. The human camp had transformed into something resembling a small village. 14 cadets from 7 different species now lived and worked together under human guidance. What had started as desperate individuals seeking help had become an organized community. Thomas stood before a group of 6 cadets, demonstrating shelter construction techniques. He held bundles of plant material in his hands and spoke with the easy confidence of someone teaching basic skills. "See, you want to insulate from the ground first. That is where you lose most body heat during cold nights. Airflow matters too. You need ventilation or you will suffocate from your own carbon dioxide, or worse, get carbon monoxide poisoning from your fire." A Draxian cadet raised one of his sensory tentacles. "You learned this in military training?" Thomas laughed. "No, mate. Summer camp. I was 8 years old." The Draxian's translator made confused sounds trying to process that information. Military-level survival skills taught to 8-year-old children as recreation. The concept seemed impossible. Across the camp, Kate had organized what she called fun runs. A group of 5 cadets jogged behind her through the forest, though calling it jogging was generous. Most cadets were gasping for air after half a kilometer. Kate had completed 10 kilometers and was not even breathing hard. "How is this possible?" Quarix asked when they finally stopped. His logical mind demanded answers. "Your muscle structure is efficient but not superior to ours. Your oxygen processing is adequate but not exceptional. The mathematics do not support this level of endurance." Kate jogged in place while the others collapsed on the ground. "Persistence hunting. Our ancestors would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes entire days, until the animal literally died from exhaustion. We evolved to just keep going. It is not about being fast or strong. It is about never stopping." Qualin, Quarix's twin, made a sound of distress. "That is horrifying. You would chase animals until their hearts gave out." "That is how we got dinner," Kate said with a grin. "Before we invented weapons that could kill from distance, we just outlasted everything. Humans are not the fastest runners or the strongest fighters. We are just the ones who never quit." Emma's medical lessons drew the largest crowds. She had set up an organized area with supplies and was teaching basic first aid to a mixed group of species. Her hands moved confidently as she demonstrated bandaging techniques on a willing volunteer. "Everything on Earth tries to kill you," she explained in her matter-of-fact teaching voice. "So you learn to treat everything. Broken bones, infections, venoms, burns, hypothermia, heatstroke, parasites, blood loss, shock. If you spend time outdoors on Earth, you learn all of it." "This is standard education for your species?" Krethker asked. He sat nearby, his leg now fully healed thanks to Emma's treatment. "I was a Girl Scout, so yeah. We had badges for this stuff. Little patches you sewed onto your uniform to show what skills you had learned." "Children earn military medical qualifications?" "They are not military. They are just life skills. You know, things you need to know to go camping or hiking safely." The monitoring station had given up trying to make sense of human behavior. Dr. Thesick was now writing what she called a complete dissertation on Deathworld psychology. Velkoth simply watched and learned. James sat with a group teaching firecraft. His hands moved through the familiar motions of arranging kindling while he spoke. "Fire is your best friend in survival situations. It gives you warmth, cooking, water purification, light, signaling, defense against predators, tool-making. Humans have been using fire for nearly 2 million years. It is basically in our DNA at this point." "But the Academy provided heating elements and cooking units," a cadet pointed out. "Sure, but what happens when they break? You always have backups to your backups. That is survival thinking. Never rely on one solution. Always have another way." The cadet looked thoughtful. Your people do not trust technology? We trust it fine. We just do not depend on it completely. Technology fails. Skills do not. Day 24 brought the conversation that would change everything. The group sat around the fire after dinner, and Krethker asked the question that everyone wondered about. Why are you so comfortable with danger? Other species fear death. You seem to treat it as an inconvenience. James poked the fire with a stick, thinking about his answer. You know what the average human lifespan was for most of our history? Maybe 30 years if you were lucky. You know why? Everything killed us. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans, infections from tiny cuts, childbirth, starvation, bad water. Everything. Emma nodded and continued the thought. So we adapted. We learned to make tools from rocks and sticks. We controlled fire when it should have burned us. We built shelters that kept out weather. We created medicine from plants. We formed communities for protection. We did not just survive our world. We conquered it. Took thousands of years and cost millions of lives, but we did it. Thomas added his piece. And somewhere along the way we realized something important. If you are going to live somewhere that constantly tries to kill you, you might as well enjoy the time you have got. No point being miserable while you survive. Kate smiled at the fire. That is the human philosophy in simple terms. Dance while you can, because tomorrow the world might end. So we climb mountains because they are there. We explore oceans because they are mysterious. We go to space because it is the ultimate frontier. Danger does not stop us. It motivates us. It makes us curious. You seek danger deliberately? Quallen asked. We seek challenge, Emma corrected. There is a difference. Danger is just the environment. Challenge is the opportunity to grow, to learn, to prove what you are capable of. Humans need challenge like we need food and water. Without it, we become restless and unhappy. James looked around at the alien faces watching him. Here's the thing about Earth. It made us tough, yeah, but more importantly, it made us adaptable. We live everywhere on our planet now. Frozen Arctic regions, burning deserts, high mountains with thin air, deep jungles with a million ways to die, tiny islands and massive oceans. Humans adapt. That is our real strength. Velkoth listened through the surveillance feed and finally understood the truth about Deathworlders. They did not survive despite the danger. They thrived because of it. Danger shaped them, refined them, made them into something that could not be broken by mere environmental hostility. Sir, a technician interrupted his thoughts. Final examination phase is scheduled for day 28. The Predator Assault Protocol. Do we proceed? Velkoth looked at the screen showing humans and aliens sitting together around a fire, sharing knowledge and building community in the middle of a world designed to kill them. Activate it, he said quietly. Let us see what they can really do. Day 28 arrived with dawn breaking over Theta 9. In the monitoring station, Velkoth stood before the main control panel with his 4 arms folded. Around him, technicians checked systems and prepared to activate the final protocol. This was the Crucible's ultimate test, designed to push even the strongest cadets into pure survival mode. All systems ready, Ambassador, the chief technician reported. Military-grade combat drones are in position. Enhanced predators are ready for release. Environmental hazards are primed. Activate everything, Velkoth ordered. Full assault protocol. Across Theta 9, the machinery of death came to life. Combat drones dropped from hidden orbital platforms. Predator containment fields deactivated, releasing creatures that had been bred and enhanced specifically for killing. Seismic destabilizers triggered artificial earthquakes. Acid rain systems engaged. Electromagnetic pulse generators charged to full power. In the human camp, 14 cadets slept peacefully, unaware that in 60 seconds their world would become a battlefield. Emma woke first. Her hand touched James's shoulder gently but firmly. We have company. Lots of it. No panic. No fear. Just information. James rolled to his feet in one smooth motion, grabbing his spear. The weapon was beautifully crafted with a fire-hardened tip and perfect balance. He whistled sharply, a sound that cut through the early morning air. The camp exploded into organized chaos. Thomas, take the eastern perimeter. Kate, you have north. Krethker, get everyone who cannot fight into the center shelter. James's voice carried absolute authority. 2 months ago, other species would have laughed at a human giving orders. Now everyone moved without question. The first combat drone swooped low over the camp, its weapon systems locking onto targets. These were not the simple patrol drones from earlier in the examination. These were military hardware designed to kill. Kate picked up a rock, judged the distance and speed in half a second, and threw. The rock flew in a perfect arc and smashed directly into the drone's primary sensor array. Sparks flew. The targeting system failed. Before the drone could compensate, Thomas had thrown a weighted net over it and was smashing its core with a stone hammer. "One down," he shouted, already scanning for the next threat. "Contact east," Emma called out. "Big one's incoming." 3 enhanced predators crashed through the forest. Each was the size of a ground vehicle, covered in armor plating, with neural programming that made them efficient killers. The monitoring station had released them specifically to cause casualties. The humans did not run. They charged forward. Velkoth gripped his chair. "They are attacking? Those creatures are designed to kill trained soldiers." James slid under the first predator's strike with movements that looked almost casual. His spear drove upward into the softer belly armor. The creature screamed. Emma and Kate flanked the second predator from both sides, using fire-hardened stakes to pin its legs while Krethker brought a heavy club down on its skull. Thomas faced the third predator alone. It lunged with claws extended. Thomas sidestepped with minimal movement and redirected the creature's momentum. It stumbled forward and fell into a trap pit the humans had dug days earlier. The predator landed on sharpened stakes and stopped moving. 3 down, Thomas reported calmly. The electromagnetic pulse hit without warning. Every piece of electronic equipment died instantly. Heaters, water purifiers, communication devices, biosensors. All dead. The humans had prepared for this. They already had backup systems. Friction fires, mechanical water filters, signal mirrors. Technology had failed, but their skills had not. They anticipated equipment failure? Velkoth asked. "Sir, the human James mentioned something on day 12 about Murphy's Law. It means anything that can break will break." More drones appeared. More predators. The acid rain started falling. The monitoring station threw everything at them. The cadets who had learned from the humans formed defensive positions using techniques they had practiced. Quarix used logic to calculate optimal strike points. Qualin coordinated timing with mathematical precision. The Draxian used camouflage methods Emma had taught. Krethker fought with confidence, his healed legs strong, his movements sure. And the humans did what humans had always done. They adapted. They improvised. They overcame. James created an explosive device using camp fuel and local chemicals. The blast took out a cluster of drones. Kate led a group on a running attack that drew predators into a prepared kill zone with multiple traps. Thomas channeled the acid rain through carved channels, directing it onto drone circuits and shorting them out. Emma coordinated everything while treating injuries, her field hospital processing wounded cadets with practiced efficiency. The assault protocol was designed to last 6 hours. The humans ended it in 4. When the extraction shuttles arrived on day 30, they found a fortified camp with 0 casualties and 14 cadets singing human victory songs around a fire. Velkotha's report took 3 days to write. It would fundamentally change how the Concordat viewed Deathworld species. He wrote that the Crucible was inadequate for evaluating humans. What was designed to test limits they experienced as recreation. He recommended immediate revision of all protocols for species from Class 10 or higher Deathworlds. He noted that humans demonstrated superior threat adaptation psychology. They did not merely survive hostile conditions. They psychologically reframed them as opportunities for growth and community building. Most significantly, humans were natural teachers. They had transformed struggling cadets into competent survivors through knowledge transfer and community formation. His final note included a quote. When asked if the examination was difficult, Kate had responded simply, "It was nice. Reminded me of family camping trips but with better weather." The 4 humans graduated with highest honors. Every elite military unit in the Concordat offered them positions. They chose to become instructors instead. "Someone needs to teach these people how to actually survive," James said during the graduation ceremony. "And have fun doing it," Emma added with a smile. The Crucible was redesigned. The new cadet handbook included a special warning that became famous across the galaxy. If assigned to train with Deathworld instructors, particularly humans, understand that their definition of moderate difficulty may differ significantly from yours. This is normal. You will adapt or you will learn why they call them Deathworlders. Either way you will survive. They will make sure of it. At the bottom, in smaller text, appeared a quote from the humans' first graduating class. "If you are not having fun, you are not doing it right." Years later, cadets across the Concordat would repeat those words while struggling through training that seemed impossible. And somehow, remembering that humans had smiled through worse, they found the strength to continue. Because that was the real lesson of the Crucible. Survival was not just about strength or skill. It was about attitude, community, and the stubborn refusal to let a hostile universe break your spirit. The humans had taught the galaxy that lesson. And the galaxy would never forget it.